Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for this panel discussion. I'm honored to be joined by four amazing industry experts from different parts of this continent. And on this panel today, we have Serge Noukoue, who is the audiovisual attaché for the French Embassy in Kenya, and he's also the founding director of Nollywood Film Festival in Paris. We also have Trushna Patel, who is the managing director of Multimedia Crimson Multimedia Limited, and also we have George, who is an industry expert and a distributor. He's worked in the industry and in the distribution space for a couple of years. He'll tell us more about that. And last but not least, we have Lara Utian Preston, who is the CEO and founder of Ladima Foundation. She's also the director of Red Flag um, Media. So feel most welcome to this session. We'll be discussing about how to monetize our content, because as creatives, we are asking, where is the money? How do we've been having the distribution talks the whole of this week. So now our filmmakers need to know and understand, how do they make money out of their content. So I think we'll start by first introducing ourselves, talk about your background, your professional background, and then you can tell us more about your companies and your designations. So we'll start with Serge, then we go to Trushna, then George, then Lara.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Serge Noukoue. I am currently the film and media attaché at the French Embassy. And the French Embassy in Nairobi, which is responsible for, I'm responsible for the whole of East Africa. The goal is to create synergies with filmmaker institutions between East Africa and Europe, specifically France, but also between East Africa and also French-speaking countries of the continent. The idea is to contribute to the professionalization of the sector. So distribution is a very key point, and myself, I have experience in that field as I worked in distribution. I've also worked as a broadcaster, being the head of acquisition for one of the most important channels in French-speaking Africa, and also having set up a festival. So I have experience all around the spectrum, from distribution to acquisition to production as well. And so I'm happy to be here, and I hope I can contribute to a wonderful conversation today.
Great. Trushna seems to have left. So George? Oh, Trushna, you're there. Okay. You're muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right. My name is Trushna Patel. I am the founder of Crimson Multimedia Limited, a film distribution company that specializes and focuses on theatrical film distribution across East and West Africa. We represent studios such as Walt Disney and Warner Brothers and many independent studios. And I am also the founder of Motion Cinema, which is the first middle-income level cinema established in Donholm, the middle-income sector of Nairobi. I'm also the co-founder at My Movies Africa, which is a VOD app, a transactional, and EST, which is electronic sale-through, owned for life. And we have just launched just under a year, and we focus on African films, offering to the Kenyans at the moment. And thereafter, we look to also enhance the service across Africa in our phase 2.
Oh, great. George?
Hi, everybody. My name is George Kimani. I've been in the industry for a couple of years. Worked in television, in radio in East Africa, and started distribution, I think year 2006, Sitengi, Cape Town. where we first came across Nollywood content when they were selling it on VHS, and they have grown till now. So our company offers 2 levels of service for broadcasters, where we consult on the content strategy and also on the provision of content. So we have worked with other distributors across Africa, from Nollywood, South Africa, Zambia, different places, bringing in content and also trying to sell to them content, and also a lot of international content that has come into East Africa, from the Hollywood side, Bollywood, South America, South Korea, all this content. We have handled their catalogs for East Africa. Thank you so much to Dr. Zippy, to Lucy for having me here. I hope to share a little bit of what I know.
Great. Lara?
Hi, I'm Lara, UTN Preston. I'm based in Cape Town. So yeah, I wear also a few hats, I think, as all of us do in this industry. So Red Flag Media has been around for over 15 years and started in the film space around that time. Actually, that's when I first met Trushna, when I was involved with rolling out New Metro into East and West Africa. Over the years, I've worked very closely with film festivals, so worked very much on the Zanzibar Film Festival for a number of years, Cape Town Film Festival, Joburg Film Festival. So a lot of experience in that. Also, as Lucy mentioned in her intro, my main background and expertise is in marketing and publicity. So we work with, in the film space specifically, at the development phase. We'll talk about that a bit later. So helping to put plans together even as early as in the development phase. Then also marketing theatrical releases, marketing films to film festivals, marketing film festivals themselves. And then nearly 3 years ago, also co-founded the LIPFF Foundation, which is a Pan-African organization working to support women in the film space. And we have a number of initiatives, training. We're about to launch our next batch of training across 7 disciplines, e-learning, which is going to start in January, as well as on-site training in Nigeria. We also give awards. We also recently just ran a COVID-19 short film competition for women across the continent, which was amazing, 2-minute films. We got nearly 200 entries in under 3 weeks, which was incredible. So we're busy actually turning that into a feature-length documentary at the moment. And yeah, rolling out with a number of projects. And yeah, so those are my main activities at the moment. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So I would like to hear from each one of you on what are your views and recommendations on how creatives can start to monetize their content, because we have a lot of great ideas that have been shelved, or probably producers who don't know where to take their content. So in your views, where do you see the industry going, and where do you see the opportunities to monetize currently based, and where do you see in the future? We start with Serge. We go in the same way, Serge, and then Trushna, George, and Lara.
I think what's important is to have a global understanding of the industry, and have a global understanding of I want to talk about the windowing system, for instance, but what we find is that most of the time producers make a film, which they either self-fund or they fund through different private donors or investors, and they are looking to make their money back. But they are always or often in a rush to make that money back. So what's lacking usually is a proper strategy. A proper strategy that will be over the next 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. The life cycle of content is actually longer than we think. Of course, you know, on TV or Netflix, there's constantly new content coming out. But the reality is, if your content is good, and if your content has the right, has targeted specific audience, your content is actually going to be out there for a long time. So it's important to have that global perspective, to think about how do you want to expose your content even before you start shooting your film or your series. And a lot of time I find that it's lacking with the different productions who actually start thinking about the audience once the product is finished. And that's actually too late. If you want to have a real impact, you need to have a marketing plan, and that marketing plan has to be thought about before you start shooting. And then that gives you more time and more leverage to really and fully impact your audience the way you want to, and obviously the return on investment is going to be much higher if you go about it that way.
Awesome. Trushna?
Actually, I was Serge literally snatched the words out of my mouth. That was the first thing that I was actually going to talk about. Is the life cycle of a film is much longer than most people think, or content rather. Let me be more broad about it. Challenge is that most filmmakers do not engage or have the know-how of what will happen once their content is complete, and that thought process starts once they do finish, and I think that is fairly late. Because at that point, it affects how they're going to market that content to their viewers. Who are their viewers? That's also not identified. And at that point, to start developing something is very raw, and it may not get you the effect it should. We work in an international audience market. Theatrically, personally, we have lineups or films are dated from now till 2025. There is kind of a thought process plan that is already in play. And then suddenly you find a filmmaker comes in and says, listen, I have this film, I want to start in cinema next week. The exhibitors are also out to make money. They just don't want to plonk a content that may not reward much, so they will be either reluctant, or there will be very little exposure or little interest basically to expose it. So it is a long-term plan, and it has to start from onset. When you have a project plan, your project plan has to include distribution and marketing. Those are two key elements to think about. One other key factor is most filmmakers, and referring to local filmmakers, wherever they get their funding from, whether it is privately funded, or it's banking institutions, or funded through the film commissions, etc. 100% of that budget goes to filmmaking. There is no afterthought or spend left to post production and release of the film. And I think that's where it falls flat, because you have this great content in your hands, but it's difficult to get it to the audience. They know very little about it, and then so the effect is going to be not to what you desire at the end of the day. So those are two key factors that I feel are very important for filmmakers. And I'm happy that of late we do have engagements. I mean, with COVID, it has helped us do a lot of these virtual meets, and I think as distributors we are getting a lot of exposure, and as a result people are approaching also to discuss these factors, knowing that they are important now. So that's at least something positive to see. But I still find a lot of filmmakers, I came across a film on Facebook recently. I hadn't heard about it before, but it's ready and it actually premiered. So we're right now trying to engage to find out how do we get it further exposed. But it may be way too late. But that there are cases like that do happen.
Okay, George?
I think Serge and Trushna, you have laid it out very well. I had a nice presentation prepared. You have said everything. So let's continue with the conversation. I think I said when you were introducing is we have to wear many hats, because the business of content is very difficult. It's really difficult with the challenges that you've mentioned. And I'll put on my marketing hat now, because currently I'm also part of a creative agency, and we handle brands and their content and their strategies and everything. And I think what we're looking at here is a situation where the content creators don't look at what they're producing as a product. Sometimes I feel like they're so close to it, you know, they want to hide the fact that they are producing because they believe that maybe somebody somewhere is going to copy it or for whatever reason. And this conversation has been going on for a while of what is the process? I think that's what you've alluded to. What is the process? Do you wake up one morning and decide, hey, I want to do a movie. I have a great idea. And you put on the camera, call your friends, get actors, audition, and the movie is out. You know, that seems to be the process. And yet, like any product, where are the numbers? You know, where are the projections? Where's the planning? You know, fine, you have 1 million shillings to do a movie. What percentage of that goes into production? What percentage of that goes into marketing? What percentage of that goes into the cost of sales? Because selling costs money. You know, going to those film festivals, engaging with distributors, making those calls, it costs money. So I think here it's what we're talking about here is a shift of filmmakers either having to put on another hat, which they must, as all over the world they have, of actually starting to work the numbers. So that it's not really about, and I'm part of many filmmaking Facebook pages and groups, and the key thing is always now the next big camera that I'm using. You know, now I'm using the black. Then now it's on the red. Oh, now I have these lights. Now we are doing this. And there's one person in this whole conversation who is always crying. The actual writers. Okay. The actual writers are even paid worse than, I don't think they even get a budget. I think there's more budget for food in the production than even the writers. And yet, this whole conversation, you're talking about content, is the people putting together the content. These are the writers, these are the creators. So when we look at the whole process, there's a problem. There's a problem. And I'm glad that Serge has spoken because he talks now from the Nollywood side. So this is not a Kenyan problem. This is maybe an African problem or even wider of the creators being so emotional about their content that they forget that it's actually a business and a really, really tough business. Because in Trushna's world of cinema, if she doesn't have your marketing material 6 months before release, chances of her making money and you making money just goes down. So how do they work so that when you're producing, when you're on location, you're also shooting your promo, you're taking pictures. When you're auditioning people and you decide you're going to make George your lead, take my photos and start creating posters so the poster can go out. When you're shooting on your shooting list and when you're shooting on your and you have your production lined up, at which point do you shoot the promo? At which point do you shoot the trailer? So that we get to know what is coming out. And then you put it out there. There's something interesting I saw with one of the Nollywood films. They were releasing it on YouTube, but 3 months before, they were hitting me with adverts, with the trailer of the movie, paid for on YouTube. And for those who maybe think that YouTube is not expensive to advertise on, Facebook is not expensive to advertise on, that helps you, the producer, raise the level and the profile of your content. So you're not walking around with a CD or a hard disk to tell guys, hey, I have content here, I want to put it on your cinema, or I want to put it on your TV channel or whatever else, but you are hitting your clients with advertising. 10,000 Kenya shillings of advertising well targeted on YouTube can do you wonders. With Google Ads, can do you wonders. So I think I'll stop there as we just trying to spark up conversation so that now that I will not be able to do my fantastic presentation.
Well, you just did the same thing to me, George. You just took all my points. So it's terrible. No, but I think, yeah, I just completely agree. There's a few other things I'll highlight. Just completely agree with what everybody has said. And I think that it's also about understanding that as the filmmaker, maybe you're not the best person to do this. Like you would hire a cinematographer to do your cinematography, an audio specialist to do your audio, an editor to do your editing. A marketer should do your marketing. And if you're not comfortable doing it, get someone in who is. And exactly like everyone has said, if you are not planning your marketing and distribution, at the same time you're planning your shoot, you're too late. It has to be done at that initial time. And I think the other point is to understand that there's two marketing plans that actually need to happen. Your first is, if you haven't gotten a deal that's already built in with your funding, that there's a distribution deal, you're going to need a marketing package for distributors. You actually even take it a step further back. You might even need a marketing package for funding for your development phase. Then you would need a marketing package for distributors, and then you need your marketing materials, which your distributor may or may not assist you with for the audience. So there's different levels of who you're marketing to. And I mean, I've been involved in, as I mentioned, so many film festivals, and it is unbelievable. And George said it's not a Kenyan issue. There'll be films, and it's not even an African issue. Films that come from small independent filmmakers. They send a film, and you say, "Where's your EPK? What's an EPK? And where's your electronic press kit? Where are your stills?" Like you said, how could you have not taken stills while you were shooting? Where's your bios of your lead, your director's statement, your director's bio, etc. And I think, but again, it's very important to understand that the way it's packaged. I can't remember, maybe even been Lucy. I think it was a few years ago for some events, I was trying to put together a panel about distribution. And it was someone from one of the major Pan-African broadcasters said, "Can we not, I don't want to talk about distribution. Can we talk about how people come to me with their content? Because the quality of how filmmakers are bringing their content to me as a broadcaster is so bad that I don't even like, and the desks are piled high with submissions, with mails. And if you're sending a package that's badly put together, your film might be amazing. They'll never even watch it because your materials are so badly put together. So it's about, and yes, it may take some money, and yes, you must set aside some of your production budget for marketing. But as George has said as well, like, these things do not have to be expensive. You're a creative person, be creative, but understand that the way you package, when you go to a funder in the first place to try and get funding to even go into, so this is into the development stage. If you, and it comes down to things as well, like if English is not your first language, but you're writing in English, get someone to check it. If you're looking to sell it to a French distributor and French isn't your language, get someone to check it. Swahili, whatever it is. But I think it's understanding that the tiniest of those details can actually prevent your film or your proposal from even being read or taken seriously. And I think George was really right. As a director or a filmmaker or the producer, you are so emotionally attached, especially with feature-length film. It often takes years to get this project off the ground. It's years of your life. And so there is this emotional attachment. But it's similar. I mean, for many years, I worked in the music industry, and it was a similar phenomenon. And you'd find also, artists that had their moms or their dads as their managers. And we say, it's a disaster. They're too emotionally involved. You need an objective voice on your team saying to you, no, like, you think this is your audience, but actually it's not. Or, you think that this is packaged well, but it can be better. And so, yeah, that you need someone who's able to take that step back and look at what you're packaging and how you're packaging it with who has an understanding of who it's going to, instead of trying to do it all yourself.
Awesome. I'll go back to you, Lara, because you've touched on the whole packaging and you've touched a bit on the marketing tools that are needed. So probably you should go a little deeper into that, because George touched on one or two things. So as a content creator, I come to you as a distributor or as a marketer. What are the tools that you need me to come prepared with?
Yeah. So for us, so say your film has now gotten a theatrical release. I mean, here in South Africa, I can speak, you know, if you get a theatrical release, the theater's not going to do much for you. You think that they're going to, but they're not. And it's actually the way things work here, and I don't know if they're exactly the same elsewhere, but you know, that life cycle of the film. So how your film does, if you get a 2-week or a month, if you're lucky, at a Ster-Kinekor or a New Metro, how you do there will actually impact the broadcast deal you might get later. So whether it's multi-choice or a streaming platform, they're going to say, well, how did it do in your home country? How did you do theatrically? And if you did terribly in your own home country, they're going to say, well, I don't think this project has legs. So, you know, you also need to see that your theatrical release is not only about making some money through that theatrical release, but it's also going to set the stage for what you can ask for down that life cycle of the film. So Trushna can advise if it's similar, you know, perhaps in Kenya. But
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but so as I say, the cinema is not going to do much. You're going to get here, you know, your normal ad that lists every film that's showing, but it's up to you to get the bums on the seats. And it really is, in this day and age, about being creative. I mean, as George was saying, it does not cost a lot of money to go on social media, to use digital tools. And these days, I mean, yes, theatricals are a different one, obviously, right now during COVID, but we will get past this, and we will. So we're talking big picture here. You have to identify your audience. I mean, I think we've all said it, but if you don't know who your audience is, you're in deep trouble. And also, what your audience's behaviors are. So if you're marketing a film that is to a young audience, you know, there's no point in going into the newspaper, really, with anything, right? You wouldn't waste the money, you wouldn't waste the effort. How many young people read a newspaper? If your film is, for whatever reason, maybe it's a more formal documentary that actually is targeting a more older demographic or a more academic demographic, know who your audience is and know where they live, so to speak. Do they live on a digital space? Do they live, are they a radio market? Is outdoor media going to do it for you? You know, what are the different ways you're going to need to reach people? And then get incredibly creative. You know, a cinematic release, you can be very specific because it's geographic, right? You're in specific cities. You don't have to, you know, when it's on a TV or a Pan-African platform, it's actually a lot harder. But so just looking from a theater, you know, starting from the theater, you know, even if it's about, you know, getting out there and doing guerrilla stuff, you know, theater on the street. There was a dance film that we helped release here in South Africa, and in Sandton and Rosebank, they had like flash mobs of dancers, you know, where the cinemas are. You know, big cinemas in Sandton and Rosebank. So, you know, those are just creative things. Obviously, the basics, I think the guys have touched on. I mean, you need movie posters, you need a trailer, you need photos, you need social media presence, publicity campaign that's going out to media, inviting media to your screenings. And again, so if you don't have those contacts, you know, the media and the influencers, the word of mouth is going to get the buzz about a film. That's still, you know, people tell people, I saw this film, go see it. So I mean, it's an entire, you know, marketing plan. And as you go up from theatrical then to maybe national broadcaster or streaming, obviously that changes. But I think, you know, no matter what it is, you need those very basics. All your stills, your trailer, your social media presence, your press releases, your bios, all that kind of stuff. And you need someone to drive it. And driving film marketing is a huge job. So again, don't think I'll just do it. When my film comes out, you're going to have no energy and time to be doing the marketing for your film. So get someone in to market it and understand, you know, again, where is the film in its life cycle? If it's at a festival, it's a different story. So I think that's just also the point, is that, you know, the way you market is going to be very, very different if it's at a festival, if it's a theatrical release, if it's on TV, or if it's on streaming. But I'll
Awesome.
stop there.
Great. I'll go to Trushna, and I would like to hear from you, Trushna, about what Crimson has been doing during the COVID period. I know that like the season has been like off peak totally, but since creatives still are churning out content, what opportunities do you and how do you ask them to pitch themselves for the future?
So just to go one step back to what Lara said, cinemas are very similar. I mean, they behave in a similar way in this part of the world as well. They don't do much. The fact that you get screen time is what you count on. So the effort's got to be basically, it's left to the distributor and the filmmaker, and collectively we need to get the word out there, make sure that you know, we literally have to push the cinemas as well to do whatever the little they do, but they're really driving in numbers based on what they have on a weekly lineup, that's kind of thing. So it's a two-way effort, and recently we released Softy, which is in cinema currently, and I'm happy to say that, you know, as a distributor, having support from the filmmakers and collectively us working on the ideas or ways that we've tried to sell the film without spending too much, but looking at ways that at least can get to the audience. They can see that it's in cinemas. There is personal attention by the filmmakers, their cast and crew, you know, the cast and crew visiting the cinemas. So we've tried different elements that have actually worked. And you know, we're trying to encourage more filmmakers to think that way. There are a few other filmmakers that we've engaged from the point of you know, their project start, and so we see that next year when they are ready to roll, it will be a better picture. And like Lara said, yes, COVID. With COVID right now, cinemas is unfortunately, I mean, they're all struggling with the with the social and the security, the whole, you know, pandemic crisis. There are lesser hours of showing that, you know, cinemas can really operate on. They're working on lesser capacities, so it's a short term. You know, they'll bounce back. Cinema is where your movie should start. It gives you the appeal, just as in South Africa. If you get a cinematic release, I think other platforms are very keen to know what kind of numbers you can generate. So it's something that we have also been pushing for. And COVID has taught us one thing, that we're reliant heavily on West. Homegrown needs to be given more preference. The countries that have had a good flourishing local industry are able to survive this wave. And clearly we can see that now also with the Kenyan films that have made it either to a drive-in as a premiere or are releasing in cinemas. There are more films that are expected to release in cinema, which is a really positive thing. But right now we're getting a chance to explore, because cinemas also have more screen time, so they're willing to test. When they have more commercial product, they might be, you know, a little jittery to say, well, I can't give you so many shows. Softy is now in its 4th week, which is a really good thing. Generally, you get about a week, 2 weeks of a Kenyan film release, and thereafter, the filmmakers on their own to figure out what they want to do with the film. So we are encouraging, and the reason for also sitting in a forum like this is to try and encourage filmmakers to consider exploiting all the windows and not just jumping to you know, one platform. You know, I can understand Netflix is very lucrative at this point. Filmmakers may see it as value, because they can, you know, it's like a certificate or a medal on your talent, that you can say my film is on a prestigious platform or so. But are they amortizing? Are they recovering what they have invested? That is a challenge that if you block yourself to a platform, I would assume you should be in a position to have at least made some money if you are going to give away rights for 2 years exclusive, or or blocking yourself out to any other platform at that matter. And I think that it is important for filmmakers to start with cinema and follow the windows step by step. And I think that they can amortize. And with the various forums we are tackling right now, I think that information is getting out to filmmakers. There is more awareness. We still have more to create as we carry on, but I think that awareness is important, and engaging and making sure there are distributors in different fields. We focus on theatrical. We also focus on VOD. And My Movies Africa, for example, is focusing on premium VOD. The aim is extension to cinema. If you cannot reach to the couple of cinemas that are showing your film, then let's explore that as premium VOD. You transact for your film, pay as you go, but watch the film before it heads on to a satellite TV or another VOD platform. On broadcast, there are so many platforms that can be explored. And I think clearly what Lara said, most of these platforms are interested in what the homegrown numbers were, and if there is nothing to show, automatically they devalue their product. So it may be a perfectly good, really good content, but it may not get the value that it's worth. So that's one challenge. Going back to what you said about COVID, cinemas are struggling. And their biggest problem right now is content. We believe that if there is content, audience will come back. I think people are tired of sitting at home. The experience of watching a movie with other audience, sharing their emotions, laughter, action, cry, you cannot get it anywhere. You cannot enjoy it at home on your TV or even on your mobile device. It's a good substitute, but it can never replace cinema. And so I think that more content needs to be encouraged to get to cinema. We're trying our best. We're helping with information. We're helping with the distribution, and we hope that more filmmakers will come out and not bypass. We really need to make sure that cinemas do not die, because they are part of this, a very important part of this ecosystem.
All right. So, Serge, I'll go to you as we continue with the ecosystem of content. So there's the cinema, there's theatrical. So how else do you see or do you suggest to content creators to monetize their content? Because as Trushna has said, there's this whole fuss about my content's going to Netflix. Everyone is considering Netflix. So what do you suggest that as a content creator, as you approach distribution, as you approach marketing, how do you place yourself to be able to make money?
I definitely agree with most of what has been said here by Trushna, by George, and Lara. I think the cinema window is definitely still important. I think in a country like Kenya, it's important also that cinemas can be found outside of Nairobi, because right now there is a concentration of cinemas in Nairobi. I believe there are a few screens as well in Mombasa, and maybe even less in Kisumu. But it's important that there's also like a global understanding of the importance of cinema, and cinema has to reach people wherever they are in this country. That's another step that I think the KFC is very aware of, and they are working on as well. But that would be a very positive development to have in the future. Trushna was talking about how the cinema that she runs is a middle income or even low income cinema. I think that's something that can be replicated outside of the capital. Now, for filmmakers, I think we've pretty much said it all in terms of how to exploit their content. That window, the windowing system has to be respected, meaning that you start with cinema, you go then to your TVOD, then your SVOD, then your pay TV, then you go to free TV. And then after that, if you want, you can have some DVD. Even though this market is a bit is on its way out right now. The DVD sector is definitely not doing so well. And I know, I mean, especially in countries like Nigeria, whenever content gets to DVDs, then there's a higher risk of piracy, even though piracy is possible at all levels. And sometimes, movies don't even come out in the cinemas, but you see them on the streets. So piracy is definitely another issue. But talking about piracy, it's also important to understand that piracy actually happens when the distribution is not well or is not efficient in a way. Piracy a lot of time kind of fills the gap that exists out there. So we have to fight piracy, but we also have to understand what the traditional network of distribution can do better in order to avoid global piracy. But again, the windowing system is definitely important, but I think another thing that is important, and it's like the basic, filmmakers and producers have to understand, have to give their content time. Some filmmakers feel that by signing a deal with a broadcaster or a platform, they should recoup all of their money all at once. And that's still a fairy tale. It's not something that happens that often. You have to have a plan over several years. You have to have a plan over a cycle, because your content will go through a cycle. It's not just a 1 year or 2 year thing. You have to have a vision over a cycle of 3-5 years, even more. So that would be my recommendations. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the message that I have out there for the filmmakers and the young producers that will be listening.
On that, I think just one thing, just quickly on the importance of cinema. If you look, I mean, obviously, it's, there's only a few countries in Africa that actually have a strong cinematic presence, and often those are, again, all in the cities. But if you look at the countries that are producing the most content, they're the countries that have cinemas: Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, some of the Francophone countries. And then if you look at Ethiopia, it's an interesting example. I haven't been there, but my understanding is that there is a thriving cinema culture in Ethiopia, and it's all Ethiopian content. That people go and they watch films in Aramaic at cinemas, and it's an ecosystem that's working. So that was the one point, and then the other point, just around that life cycle. I think it even starts one step back, and it goes to something that George had said about filmmakers not wanting to admit that, like, they're making a product, but things like product placement in your film, can be done in a way that isn't inauthentic or selling out or compromising your vision. I mean, look at, just the James Bond films. I mean, the cars are part of James Bond, right? But I mean, Aston Martin or whoever it was, I think, wasn't there one that was BMW that he had? And I think, what BMW probably paid to be that, James Bond wasn't driving an Aston Martin, but no one sees it as anything, because cars are part of who James Bond is. So, even before your film even is finished, you can monetize it. You can do product placement in very subtle and clever ways. And another thing you can do, and maybe, I don't know if anyone, is crowdfunding. Maybe not for all of it, but for some of it. And the nice thing about crowdfunding is you're creating a built-in market if you do it properly, because the people then who gave money to the ambassadors for your film. I just want to throw that into the mix as well.
I'll also jump in, because I've worked in advertising, and this is a conversation that has been going on now for about 5 years. And clients were demanding more, because television advertising now had become like dead time. The moment adverts come, we change the channel. So they were asking, what more can we get? What more can we do? And these are conversations that called in a few producers, told them, guys, tell me what you're doing. What are you producing in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year? Because there's money. Now that it didn't happen, Guess where all that money went? Influencers. They came in and they filled a gap because the client still wanted something different. That's where the influencers came in. They filled a gap. We should have come directly to what Lara is talking about, placement. Because there is money to be found. We're supposed to be talking about monetization. Let me jump into that a bit. There is money in advertising. In Kenya, before COVID, the annual total budget across all media was about 80 billion Kenya shillings across all media. Any media you can think about has come up to about 80 billion. That's a lot of money. And all these clients are asking, what more can we do? What more can we do? We don't want to place the usual adverts. People know them, they're boring. So there is money. That is one. But as we have said before, it needs to be planned. It needs to be planned. It needs to be part of the plan. And the critical thing is, as you said, who is your audience? If you can identify your audience very, very well, what's the story? How will this story resonate to your audience? Because you can't say you're targeting young people and then the story goes in a different direction. So that has to be, it has to be aligned. And then be open to come sit and take through these people who want to give you money through your story. Because when you do that, then we'll be able to find where are the opportunities, where the clients are able to come in. And even now, they're still willing, because now they are paying between 100,000 Kenya shillings to 500,000 for influencers to post something on their Instagram, on their Twitter. So the money is still there. The money is not lost, it's still there. So there's still opportunity to start clawing back and get back in the game. That is one thing. The other one I wanted to jump in on was on the windows. Because of not planning well, producers have find themselves in the situation of the person who offers them money, they take it without much thought of rights. You know, in the contracts that we deal with as distributors, there are about how many rights? About 25 different rights, 25 going to 30 different rights, content rights. So for them, when they're offered and they're told, hey, I'll give you $50,000 for your content, full rights for the next 2 years, they don't realize that they have given away 25 different opportunities of making money. But it all comes down to the planning was not done right. As I finish, I'm seeing one of the comments here, someone in Ethiopia confirming, because I've been there at this and I saw it, of people queuing to watch their movies in the theaters downtown. It was the most amazing thing. I just stood there and watched them. Whole evening, guys coming from work and going to watch their own movies in their own language. They have such a big, thriving industry that we don't know about. Their music is big, we don't know. They know. Their films, we never get to see them, but those guys are making money. Thanks.
I think I'll open this up to all of you to chip in, because George has said there are over 25 different rights that are business opportunities. This is a panel about monetization. This is about us seeing this industry as an entrepreneurship, as a business venture. So I'll leave this to any of you to take it. Which are these opportunities that we should now start exploring? Because people wonder, how do I get to airlines? How do I get my content to be sold to hotels, for instance, or VOD platforms? There are so many VOD platforms, but we are only talking about one at this moment. So could you just take it and tell us where are the opportunities to sell and to make money out of it?
So the the life cycle or ecosystem generally, let's take movies to start with. It starts off with cinema. A lot of filmmakers want to
Uh,
get
Trushna, could you adjust your microphone? It's a bit, your volume is a bit low.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yes.
Right. So the life cycle starts with cinemas. Some filmmakers prefer to go into festivals and kick off there. Although festivals are not usually deemed as money makers, the aim is to get recognition, to get awareness, awards, which are a marketing tool. So that happens. However, the cinematic start is where really your amortization starts in the Western world, or in the regions that Lara mentioned, where the homegrown product is really well exploited, and there are cinemas. Spain, France, Ethiopia, we mentioned, Nigeria. These are blossomed industries where the homegrown films launch in cinema. They take up to 60% of the revenue. That's how they start off. So you can see how important cinema is in terms of amortization. Immediately thereafter comes transactional VOD. Transactional VOD and what we refer to as a comparison is box office on DSTV, is where, so it is immediately after cinema, and it's to target people who have either no access to cinema or didn't make it, or they love the movie and they want to watch it again. So transactional VOD is where box office and My Movies Africa are currently placed. Thereafter, you have satellite TV or DSTV, Azam, Star Times, and these are obviously references to Africa. That's where the film now takes up between a year to 2 years range. And thereafter, you get your SVOD. This is the category where Netflix, Showmax, Prime Video, iFlix, unfortunately, they're no longer in this region, but they all fall into that window. And thereafter comes broadcast. These are your amortization, the key important windows that exist. Airlines tend to fall under the TVOD window as well. They usually want the content fast because you have a lot of international travelers who are crossing borders and they would like to offer fresh content. So they are sort of falling in that window. Now, as you can see, currently what is happening, as also George mentioned, filmmakers are in dire need to encash. They borrowed money. If they get a deal from any of these broadcasters and they're not falling in the window they should, sometimes the filmmaker just gives in and takes the deal. But it may block them out from these key important windows. And so as Serge said, we have to give time to a content to amortize over a period of time. But when you block out and you have exclusive deals over a period of time, maybe when the term is over, will your content be fresh enough, or will it still have the hype to sell further? That is what is not known. It's uncharted territories yet. We are yet to explore. Currently, there is a large influx by Netflix, and they're buying a lot of content. Can they sustain that? Is it a short-term COVID? Is it a COVID plan, and it may change, or strategy that may change? Again, we do not know. But in the process, we have all these different windows that need that content. It is also our responsibility to ensure that if each window is explored well, then if these platforms actually prosper, that means our content will also get more room to be viewed and be exposed to the audience. I think that is also a big goal that a filmmaker needs. They want the content to be viewed by as many people as possible, but sometimes exclusivities can restrain the content in one sector, which may not be able to reach the entire population that they are literally targeting.
Pash?
Yeah, I wanted to add something here. Sorry, I have construction happening in my house at the same time, so there's a bit of noise. Sorry about that. I wanted to say that all films are different, and it's also important to lay out a message here for filmmakers who would be watching here. Some content are clearly don't have the same commercial potential as like a rom-com. A romantic comedy, for instance, is like the typical easygoing, easy film to sell anywhere because it's a good feel movie. It's a feel-good movie, sorry. And it's like an easy sell, right? Now you can have films that are more along the lines of thrillers or horror films or whatever, that are genres that are much more difficult to sell. Or films that are more artsy, that would appeal more to a festival than to a VOD platform. It's important to understand that as a filmmaker, and it's important to carve your strategy based on that. Because we were talking about festivals earlier, and even though festivals are not the most common avenue to make money, you can still make money with festivals. I spoke with some sales agents and producers who were able to send their film to over 100 festivals globally in the lapse of a year. Typically a festival will give you some screening fees of $500, $300, maybe more, maybe less. It depends on your negotiation power. It depends on how much this festival wants to see the film. But if you do the calculation, you can actually make more money by focusing on a festival approach only than by focusing on a typical VOD or television strategy. So it's important to have that in mind so that you can really put together a strategy that works for your film, that works for the kind of film that you have. And even with festival, you can make money. So that's something that I wanted to bring out here because we hadn't really mentioned that in the conversation so far.
Yeah, I think what's really important, Serge, I'm glad you raised that, because we are kind of speaking from maybe one point of view for one journey of and one type of films, and a lot of films, a lot of films aren't going to get a cinematic release. They aren't, especially documentaries. I'm a big fan of documentaries. It's much harder for a documentary, and often, especially in some of the African country environments, and I suppose elsewhere as well, some documentaries politically aren't going to get very far. Even some feature films might have things like, we had in Kenya with homosexuality, or, things that are deemed whatever, too political, too radical, that you're not going to get those. So if you're that kind of filmmaker, obviously you also need to know that from the beginning. If you're making a film that is clearly going to, upset certain sensibilities in your home country, you need to, as Serge says, be thinking, right, I need to be going maybe festivals globally. I'm not going to get on a local broadcaster. I'm not going to get in a local cinema. And I think, the other thing is, if we can just, so that's one thing I think that's really, really important. And then secondly is to also broaden the conversation to not just feature film, but obviously, content, and obviously YouTube. And, YouTube monetization is working for a lot of people. I mean, apart from just YouTubers whose channels are making them millions, literally millions of dollars, from sponsors and ads. But I mean, there are a lot of success stories, people like Issa Rae and even Comfort Arthur from an animation point of view, who've managed to make a success out of monetizing content on YouTube. And yes, it might not be the route you go as a feature filmmaker, but there's also a journey. And I think Nollywood film also showed us that there's a journey in film industries, and there's also a journey of filmmakers. You might start out in your career making short films for YouTube, monetizing it, using that money to then fund a feature without having to raise huge amounts from other investors. So industries mature, like Nollywood started, however many years ago. The quality of Nollywood's improved, the respectability around it, the formalization around it. So industries mature, so do filmmakers. And there's nothing wrong with starting out to be a filmmaker that's putting your stuff on YouTube. You don't have to be a serious filmmaker who's going to festivals, or a commercial filmmaker who's going straight to cinema. There's other journeys to follow. And like I said, I think, looking at opportunities like YouTube is, an amazing do-it-yourself, very low barrier to entry way to start monetizing content.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for those insights. I can see we have some engagement going on Facebook and YouTube. So I also encourage our audience, please feel free to ask your questions to the panelists. We can see your questions from our end. And yeah, everyone is agreeing that this is very timely, especially people not understanding which kinds of rights they sign. So you need to be very keen when you're signing your contracts about the rights. I think one of you probably should talk about some of the contract terms we should look at when we are signing off our rights, because I think that's also been a big issue that ends up being legal issue. So probably George, you should take this. You're muted.
We've handled a lot of these contracts, but we are not legal people, you know, and I would not be comfortable talking about that. What I would ask, because every country has its own laws, because here we have different people from different countries, is find a content-friendly lawyer. Yeah, in Kenya, I know we have some who will really come out and help, and they've been having a lot of engagements with the industry. Find out, and also, as a filmmaker, there are things which you have access to YouTube, you know. YouTube, you can learn anything, you know, anything. And all this information is actually available, yeah? Be it the legal terms, be it how to negotiate, what to look out for, which territories, which window, all these things are explained very well. So I would encourage, actually, because it's your business, learn it, take some time. I can just give a short, I'm a trained filmmaker also, years ago. And I decided at this passion project, which I've always wanted to do, a historical one, and no one was interested. So I decided to go down that route to find out if I was to do this film, would it actually go anywhere? And I started by doing my research. One of the research that I did was find out how many cinemas are actually in Africa. I started with Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and I moved country to country to find out how many cinemas in total are available in Africa. And one of the things that I realized is that if my film doesn't show in South Africa, which accounts for about more than half the cinemas in Africa, then that film is dead in the water. I realized that I must get into the South African film cinemas. And what did I do? I went online, they all have websites, and I started writing emails. And I wrote emails. I called, I wrote emails until I got an answer back, because I was sending them my film, the synopsis of the film, the target, the what, basically like an EPK. I was sending them out, and someone finally decided these guys are annoying, so they responded and they gave me the information. They told me, hey, to get into the cinema, it's good that you're talking to us now. You project to finish in about 14 months. This is the best time to talk to us. Give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. You know, give us your photos, give us your what, give us your trailer, give us everything. And then first run, do the first run in your country. Then on a weekly basis, share with us the numbers. That way, we'll get to know how many screens we are going to open up for you. You know, then I wrote to other countries out of Africa. And I was like, hey, this is my synopsis. This is a movie you're working on and everything. And I got a distributor in Canada saying, once you do the film, you do your run in home country, give us the numbers, we shall buy the rights for Canada. Another one said, we shall buy the rights for Australia. I had not switched on any camera. I was just doing my research. I had the story. I was doing my numbers to see, with this amount of money, will I ever be able to make back this money? And how did I get, and for me to learn, I had to call these people, I had to engage these people. Trushna, I walked into your office and I went and I talked to the guys who sit at the back, yeah, and asked them, guys, what does it take for a film to make it into in the cinema? And they showed me this this schedule, this 4-year schedule of the movies that they know are going to come in. And then they showed me the marketing materials that these guys were providing. I was like, whoa, this is what it takes of the stuff that I needed to produce way in advance. Minimum time, 6 months. Provide all these things. So there's a lot to learn. After film school, now there's a real life school now, where this is your business, you want to do this, actually take time to learn. People are willing, but they're only willing if you're also going to push, and you push early. Because some engage me on the story. They were like, why are you doing this story this way? Yeah. Is there any love that is going to happen in there? He told me our audiences, that's what they like. Okay, I took note of that. Yeah. Others were like, this is historical. Do people really care about this story? It happened 50 years ago. Will they actually care? So it challenged me to go back and look at the story again. So nothing personal, it's all business. Because producers are very scared of sharing their story because people will critique. And yet, that critiquing is what I learned so much. I found out, like in South Africa in that year, which was the biggest South African movie. And it was a comedy. Not only the first one, the number 1, 2, 3 were all comedies that are done well. All this information is on the internet. I just went because I had interest, and I still have interest. This is a project 5 years, yeah, not yet done, but I have all the information that I need. If I was to get the money, and I shall get the money, I know where is it going, to who is it going to, which window, which territory where, because I've done my homework. So I think that's what Serge was talking about of in the planning is know in advance. Plan it in advance. That in the next 1 year, by the time I'm releasing this movie, I have lined up everything. As Laura said, you can't do this by yourself. Get a designer to design. Get a marketer to market. Get an actor to act. Get a finance person to do that. Because we have had cases here where people get the money, funded money, they go on set, and they can't account for half the money. And it is usual, it happens to big business, small business, it's not unique to filming. That you need all these critical people to make it happen. So that it is unfortunate that someone, Trushna, who can give access to cinema, is finding out about films on Facebook from people's posts. That she's not the first port of call with, hey, Trushna, we are going on location in the next 3 months, in the next 2 months, and this is our story. This is how we're going to shoot it. Be open, and from what you will learn from spending an hour with her, it will make a difference from you making 100,000 Kenya shillings and making 5 million Kenya shillings. I think I've spoken too much. I used to be an actor when I was young. Don't let me talk too much.
I would just add a little bit to what George says. I agree totally with him. I think in engaging with distributors or IP lawyers that have more knowledge in terms of the different rights, it's important for the filmmaker to understand, as Serge also said, what level of or what kind of film is it, and where can it work best. So if you have a lot of the indie filmmakers make films to fulfill their inner talent, or this, you know, this eagerness they have of to tell a story, it may not be commercially viable. It may be difficult to sell to your 16-year-old core cinema audience, you know, who wants to watch superheroes flying around in the air and action and rom-coms and stuff. So at that point, you're also trying to identify who is your audience and who are you selling to. If it is a commercial film, all these windows we've talked about, they make sense and they should be fully exploited. But if they aren't, and genuinely, if it is a film that is satisfying your hunger to make that film and a story you feel very close to, but may not be appealing to your mass audience and rather a niche target audience, then the strategy is so different, and it may not be a commercial one, sadly, which is the truth. You know, if you look at the festivals, most festivals that have film entries that do come in, I would probably say 10 or 15% actually make it to a commercial avenue. The rest are they get to a festival and that's it, or they do their festival runs and you never hear of them thereafter. So that's another challenge. I and our team were part of the Zanzibar Film Festival, which Lara was a key part of. And you know, when I looked at that lineup, I was quite surprised to see that 90% actually of those films were thought through to just get to that festival and thereafter had no legs. So it's really the educational part prior to making your content that is very important, and talking to people like us and all the panelists that are here, and similarly, you know, players in the industry who are either distributors or in marketing or are, you know, are relevant to the ecosystem, and that's how they will learn and understand where they are placed, or if they have the content, where can they fly off to, you know, what's their how strong legs can they get for their content.
Yeah, I think Trushna, the point you raised there is really important, and I think it's within any creative industry, music or film, and like I said, I've worked across both. Is, you know, you get an artist, for instance, here in South Africa, like a very passionate folk artist, you know, like a guy with his guitar, and it's not understanding why, like, you know, the commercial radio stations aren't picking up his music and why he's not, you know, at the top of iTunes. And it's like, look at the demographic of this country. Who's going to listen to your music? If, like you said, if this story or whatever this project is something that's burning a hole inside of you and you have to tell, then also your funding routes is going to be different. You know, then look at funding from film commissions, from international film agencies, or, you know, the French institutes, Goethe foundations, you know, whoever's out there funding films that are films, you know, maybe, like I said, very highbrow documentaries or non-commercial product. You just feel that film has to be told. That's absolutely fine. But yeah, but don't fool yourself that because the story is important to you, that it's necessarily got commercial potential. And that just, you know, and it also doesn't mean, you know, I think we can all say that a film that makes a lot of money isn't necessarily always a good film. You know, if you look at a lot of Hollywood films, often what appeals to the largest markets is, you know, average or mediocre, whatever you want to say, you know. So commercial success doesn't always equal quality. And yeah, it just goes back to that. There are different routes to success. And what does success mean for you? Yes, you know, you can also produce a film where you don't need to monetize it in the same way, if the way you raised the funds was a grant and not a loan. You know, there's also, you know, international co-production deals that you can do that are, you know, going to already catapult you into a different place because you've already got an international partner. But I think it's just understanding there are so many different journeys in this. But if you haven't, and I think we keep going back to the same thing, if you haven't done that pre-planning and understanding before you start, even how you raise your money is impacted by this planning. Because, you know, if you're getting a loan for a passion project, you could lose, you know, your life. You know, if you're getting a loan for a very commercially viable project, story. So even how you raise that initial finance, you know, should be completely determined by how you are seeing that monetization on the other side.
Awesome. I think I'd like to hear from each one of you, since you've interacted with different content. What are some of the success stories you have? For instance, Trushna, you can tell us which film has done very well, has brought in good money, especially a local film, and yeah, the same for the other panelists.
I think if I start off from the international content, Black Panther came in like a wave and changed the entire scenario of movie business at that frame. And you know, it has been the #1 movie, and it has remained there. I don't think it's going to be something that any film can touch for a very long time. Maybe the sequel. From local content. To date, Nairobi Half-Life remains the #1 film theatrically. The film started off, you know, we released in one cinema. Cinemas were not willing to support it. We got one cinema to launch it, and the film had its own strength, which is what drew the audience in. And thereafter, more cinemas came up and said, we would like to run this film, because they saw the potential. Suddenly, from one cinema, there were 2, 3, they were up to 8 cinemas that eventually ran. The film ran the longest in cinema, almost over 20 weeks. And it generated box office of close to about 8 million shillings, which is the highest in terms of local product. And thereafter, the next phenomena, why I say phenomena is because due to controversy, it made the numbers that it did, which was Rafiki. Because it got the initial ban, thereafter the controversy was it is being released in cinemas only for 7 days, and so you must catch it within that time frame. I still remember that I got a phone call from the director, and she requested that we need to run this in cinema. I said, okay, that's fine. When? And she said, tomorrow. I said, are you crazy? It's 3 o'clock right now, and you want the movie to be in cinema tomorrow? She said, yeah, I need your help. Do something. I said, fine. So I got one cinema on board. We got a 10 o'clock morning show. Morning shows are not predominant in our market. We got them on board, and in 30 minutes, the show was full. I've never seen that happen before. I mean, even for Hollywood films. And that's what went on. Shows were added on one after the other, and each and every show was just going full. Within that 7 days, it generated about 3 million shillings of box office, which from just one site. There were a few others that did eventually run the movie as well. Again, you know, no cinema was really willing to support at that point. But as they saw the numbers, they were excited, and they put the movie on. But they had a couple of days really as a run. But that film generated that kind of number. I mean, the cinema also, if you compare that to a Black Panther, their box office for Rafiki outsmarts Black Panther's numbers in the 7 days that they ran. So that's, you know, the second highest movie, and I think in that ranking, Softy will probably take a comfortable place with the way it's running right now. I think it's a brilliant film. Documentaries are changing the face of filmmaking. They're no longer just a plateau of storyline. It's, you know, entertaining, film-like, and so I think they are generating more interest. So those are really the highlights, I would say, in terms of movies that you know, that have really brought attention to Kenyan movies in cinema.
Serge?
I have in mind, As you mentioned, I was running a film festival before, a Nollywood Film Festival dedicated to Nigerian cinema, but not the typical Nollywood films that were of quality and films that we felt deserved to be seen all over the world. And there was this one film called The Delivery Boy. What I find interesting about it is, I'm going to get into how much was generated, but it's more about the budget of the film as well. Because, you know, whenever we talk about how much a movie generated, it's important to mention how much it cost to make the movie, so that we can have a real sense of how much money was generated. So that movie was made for a very small amount of money, and at first it was a movie that was also that didn't generate any interest in Nigeria because of the topic. The topic was, you know, close to terrorism and other themes that were a bit sensitive in Nigeria, like pedophilia and things like that. So that movie had no chance at first of being released in theaters locally. So the strategy for the film was to use the cinema run, the festival run, and we started with our festival, and then it went to other festivals in the US, in Europe, everywhere. It did over 40 festivals, which generated a lot of some revenue. And because of the interest of all these festivals, then he received some attention back home, and movie theaters were now willing to show the film, despite, you know, the film being controversial. The film worked really well in the theaters there as well. It was a limited release, again, because of the topic, kind of like what happened with Rafiki. And then after that, it was picked up by Netflix. It is currently on Netflix, actually. And so over a cycle of two years, really, not even 3, but 2 years, it made about 10 times the producer made about 10 times what he spent on the production of the film, which I find to be a remarkable example of a way to monetize content. It was not at all a traditional way. It was something that was not expected, but it ended up working out. And it worked out first outside of the country, again, because of the topic, and then went back home, and then went on global platforms such as Netflix.
Lara?
Yeah, I've just been, I'm thinking I don't necessarily have I'm not as close in the industry distribution side, so I don't have figures close to hand, but I think there's just a couple of films that I want to mention just in terms of how, just those different kind of journeys. So, I mean, one of the most successful, probably cinematic, and I don't know the numbers, in South African cinema was Happiness is a 4-letter word, which was very much a rom-com set in Joburg, up and coming, young women, and it really was what you would expect to do well at the cinemas. But there's been a couple of films that have just snuck in and had huge success across different platforms in South Africa and globally. And one is a recent film called Muthui. So Muthui is actually a derogatory term for like a gay man in South Africa. And this film has done so well. It's been picked up by various streaming platforms. It started on the festival routes. It has had a COVID life, so I don't think it's actually been in cinemas, but it has been so successful. I couldn't tell you how much money they've made, but it's following the journey. I think they have monetized, because there's a number of deals that keep getting announced in different territories for the film. And that's a really niche film. It's about an Afrikaans young man who was in the army in the bad old days and was gay, and I can imagine his story. And there's a couple of films like that that are very niche, and you wouldn't expect to do well. But again, it's like knowing their market in a similar way as Serge, you said, remind me, where it was, it's picked up first outside of the country. And whether it's at festivals, I think they won awards in the UK, major festivals, and suddenly then it starts making waves. So you can go that alternative route, especially if you're a film that isn't like Happiness is a 4-letter word, which is, just clearly going to do well at the box office. But there are still really, even with a very perhaps controversial or niche film where you can still, and I think, Trishna's pointed it out as well, that it's, the controversy is what's, for Rafiki led to that. So, yeah, you don't always have to be that big box office hit. There are alternative ways to that journey of success.
How about you, George? You're on mute.
Yeah, I've been racking my head to pick particular ones. Unfortunately, the ones that come to my head are the ones which we nearly cut international deals. This is 2012. We put together a catalog of Kenyan content, and we took a stand at MIPCOM at Cannes. Serge, you know how much that costs. And we were very excited. We went in, and it was the first time that they had a Kenyan distributor doing that. So because of that, they also gave us FaceTime, exclusive FaceTime with executives from major houses. We had Warner, we had Universal, we had Sony, we had quite a number of them. And we had 45 minutes, just us and them, taking them through what we have, cut the deals that we can. And we're very excited. We went, and there was a lot of interest with the catalog that we had and the content was all Kenyan content. It was very well done, very good content. And we presented on the one-on-one, apart from the guys who came to the stand. We presented. I can present well. I can sell you your own house. And after they finished, the lady from 20th Century, she was like, this is awesome stuff, First of all, you guys speak really good English, and there's no difference. If I put it on air, you can't tell if it is Kenyan, if the person is Kenyan or American. You could be from any country, which is a plus. Production values are good. We can do this. In my mind, I was just hearing dollars, dollars, euros checking in. But then she asked, so why are you telling our stories in your country? Like, what? She was like, yes. The trailers that we have seen, these are our stories that you have told in your country. Do you have anything that is Kenyan, that is truly Kenyan, that we can bite on? Give us something. And that was it. So that was one where we lost major deals. That would have made a big difference, because these are people who their per episode, per film was $6,000 to $15,000 per. So for the producers, that would have been awesome. The other one was with Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC. We sent this piece of content, these pieces of content, they loved them. But now these guys are very technical. They check everything. And when they checked the sound, they even took a screenshot of the sound and showed us, this is the level, this is our minimum. Your content, your sound level is at this level. So sorry. So I hope to have good stories to tell next year, because the clients are still there. They are still willing. If the content is there, we'll do it. Where we have had success is on in-flight. We had a very good in-flight distributor, global one. And we had some really good success with Kenyan movie back in 2014, 2014. The name escapes me. And a Tanzanian movie also that did very well on subtitles. The Tanzania movie was in Swahili, did subtitles. The Kenyan one is in English, and they did well. I think each of them did more than 8 runs globally. And the price per run, each run was 6 months. The price per run was, I think, $4,000, $5,000 each. So those were good. Those were good. Not had any cinema experience yet, but COVID has changed a lot of things. Anything can happen.
I just wanted to highlight a couple things, George, you touched on, and they might seem really small, but I've also seen, and I mean, I've personally been involved with also films that have run into trouble over things like not just sound, but like music rights. You need to make sure before you go and monetize or try and monetize, you've got all those kind of things in place. You know, if you're using music, it's a whole nother area. But just on the music as well, keeping in mind that the music in your film, if you're getting original music created, is another way you can monetize your film. Having an amazing soundtrack, that's also, especially if it's a regional film, it's a Kenyan film or a Nigerian film, if you've got an amazing soundtrack and you're able to work with local artists, that don't have to be big artists, and create original music for your film, that is also another way to monetize that film. That opens up a whole new area of opportunities. And when you mentioned sound, it just reminded me about music and how important, A, to have your music rights sorted, and B, also what opportunities music also provides in film.
I think you captured it quite well. Yeah, Serge, go ahead.
No, sorry. I just wanted to follow up on one of the points that George mentioned, which I will call, for the sake of going quicker, the authenticity factor. What happened when in that conversation with the Time Warner executive, and they were telling him that these are American stories that are being told in Kenya. This is something that I have witnessed before also across the board with Nigerian content, for instance. And when, as a producer, again, I'm talking to producers that will be watching here, if your intention is to sell internationally, if your intention is to be global with your content, you have to realize, you have to understand that being true to yourself, being as authentic as you can, is the best way to be global. A lot of times there's that mistake of trying to be global, and therefore you're going to speak with an American accent, you're gonna just show certain parts of the city, you're gonna do all these things. But at the end of the day, the way it's perceived in those places, in the West, globally, is that it's inauthentic. And it's not interesting because it looks or is perceived as a copy. And everybody's always gonna prefer the original to the copy. So it's very important to stay true to yourself. And I see that more and more anyway, with young filmmakers. I see that the language that is spoken in film is not just the regular English. When it comes to the Kenyan context, it will be a lot of Sheng, some Swahili, some English, like all that mixed up, which is what we hear in the street when we walk in the streets of Nairobi. If it's in Nigeria, you're going to hear a lot of pidgin. You're not going to hear the Queen's English. And that's very important to keep those elements, because that's what the international audience want to see, because that's what the international audience doesn't have access to on a regular basis. So it's important to understand that. And of course, the story can have a global appeal, but you have to keep it local, keep it true to your context, so that it can actually generate more interest outside.
Great. Trushna, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I think what the fellow panelists are talking about is a realistic approach that we've seen also, and I'm beginning to see that more also from an audience perspective in cinema in particular. Films are getting more traction when the story is told more, that resonates and is more realistic to close to home. Language is not a barrier, it seems. Language, we thought that yes, everybody watches films in English or Bollywood films in their local language, but that's their homegrown language. And similarly, the Kenyan films. Um, Recently, I have come across several films that I have done screenings on, and I find that they are all in their own vernacular languages with English subtitles. So the barrier to communicate is covered with subtitles. I don't understand a lot of those languages, but I enjoy and I relate to the film better when it's in its original language. It's told better, it's expressed better, and so I feel I'm able to enjoy it more when you try to change that. I mean, in the Western world, people have seen everything. So how is your story different? And so it absolutely makes sense. And I think even in cinema, where we thought the norm was it's got to be international standards, if we want to make the Kenyan movies successful, they've got to be in their own language, in the story, in the language that you're trying to tell your story.
Yeah, awesome. I think what I wanted to hear and capture from all of you is, are there specific themes that probably do quite well in different platforms, if it's cinema, if it's pay TV, and also the technical aspects. Do you meet the technical specifications of all these platforms that they are looking for? I think you've captured it quite well. So filmmakers know how to now package themselves for a global market. But I think the conversation here, it's more about how your storyline is packaged and also the technical bits. So probably we can touch a bit about the technical aspect of the material delivery and how it influences how your content is received out there. And also, do audiences really care much about the quality and the technical bits of content? Probably Lara should start.
I think the technical is hugely important and often overlooked. Sound quality. It's another. I think George mentioned how the writers don't get paid. I mean, I've worked with so many sound engineers and sound technicians and musicians who say it's the same thing with the film. The filmmakers often don't think about the sound. The sound is the last part that's and bad sound is often, I think, less palatable to audiences than bad visual quality. So I think your attention to detail as a filmmaker on every single step of the way is part of the journey. There are things that will block you, whether it's Netflix or any of the major global streaming platforms, even multi-choice. If you do not make your film to certain specs, they will not take your film. So again, like George said earlier on, do the homework. If you know that your path includes a multi-choice, a DSTV, any of the major Showmax, any of the major streaming platforms, their specs, their technical specifications on video and sound are available on their websites. You can find it. Similarly with your subtitling, if you're going to do dubbing, which I'm not a fan of dubbing, but I mean, there's massive technology, that has to go into that. And even your subtitling. I mean, I've seen films with, subtitling with terrible spelling errors, lag. It's just about attention to detail. And I think it goes to everything we said. But yes, you can sabotage the best quality film or story. It can be authentic. It can be well acted. It can be an amazing story. But if you fall down on the technical specifications, and some of those cannot be fixed in post. If you've done it wrong from the start, you could have spent a lot of money, and now you're not going to be able to monetize that film because you didn't do your homework. So I mean, I'm not a technical expert, but I do know that you need to make sure you're following those. And I think George and Trushna can probably speak more to this.
Trushna? Trushna?
Going to the technical side, theatrically, specifically, there is the DCI compliant format, which cinemas follow. And so most filmmakers need to ensure that when they master their finished product, it's in that format. If you use any other format, overhead projectors or so, they don't really give you the same impact. And consumers are very picky. You know, when they are paying that kind of money to go into cinema, they're expecting quality to be of the same level they would expect to watch a Hollywood title. And that is obviously something that filmmakers now are very well aware of. And you know, in the last couple of years, we have not had to release films on overhead projectors. So that's really promising to see that, you know, they are complying with the technical side. When I also look at curation on our VOD platform, for example, I do find that quality is key, especially in our case with My Movies Africa. It's a transactional platform. That means we are not on subscription. If somebody didn't like our content, it's not like they could swap over and watch something else. They're paying for it, and so they at least would expect that the technical aspects of the film are 100%. The rest is obviously on the filmmaker, on how they've made the film and whether the story is appealing to the audience. But they would expect that the picture, sound, you know, the sync, editing has been done properly, and that it's enjoyable even on your phone devices these days. You know, you've got HD quality picture, you've got high tech, very high end sound, stereo sound available in the smallest smart devices. So as a result, you know, we are expecting a very, very high level that the audience are expecting. So from a curation perspective, when our team also looks at content, they will first look at the technical aspects and then look at whether the film would be appealing to the audience or not.
Great. Serge?
Okay, for me, okay, I won't get into too many details, into too many of the technical details. That would be for another session, I think. But I think the idea is just like what we were saying before about, you know, the strategy. When you want to when you're working on your film, you need to think about the technical aspects before you shoot. You know, you can't just jump into the shoot and then you're gonna find a lot of surprises and a lot of bad surprises. You need to think about where you are taking your film. If you know that your film at some point is going to be dubbed because you want to reach a French-speaking audience, an Italian-speaking audience, whatever, then you need to have M&E tracks, for instance. You know, you need to separate the track between the dialogue, the music, and all of those things, because otherwise, if you don't do that, then you're gonna get into a situation where it's gonna cost twice as much to create the dubbing, and it's going to take twice as long. So you don't wanna be in that situation. So at the end of the day, what you want is to anticipate. Making a film, and especially producing a film, is just like, you are a project manager, and you need to anticipate the problems. Otherwise, you will get into those problems and you will get into trouble. So that would be my the takeaway, is that you really need to anticipate. You need to be you need to be proactive, and yeah, do your research beforehand, before you start production, because otherwise you will actually get into trouble.
George, your take?
My take on the technical is important, as it has been said. It all comes into the planning. Just on the point that Laura spoke about on the music, is filmmaking is an ecosystem. It's not just the director, the camera, the lighting, and that's it. It's a full ecosystem. You have your Foley sound, you have your music, you have your actors, you have the places where you shoot, the location, all these people will make it authentic. They'll make it real. The reason why we shall sit and watch your content and enjoy it and send it out and push it like it's our own, is because we shall believe, you will make us believe in it. You know, you will make us believe in it. You make Trushna watch that movie and she can see lines outside her cinema. I'll watch it and I'll know this one I can send to this client, I can send to this client, because I also believe in it. So filmmaking is an ecosystem, and I think more of these sessions, more of personal research for personal growth, so that you become a better filmmaker, will help. At the end of the day, you're doing this as a business, so it's not only about the most expensive camera. There is much more than that. What's the quality of your writers? What's the quality of your writing? You know, so that, as Serge said, if your content is able to cross borders, then it opens much bigger opportunities. There's a country right next door we are not talking about. Tanzania are producing 10 times the number of films that we are producing in this country. They have found a working formula for their content. They are able to raise money locally, they're producing locally, and people are buying the content, and it's getting into their cinema. So it's for us to find local solutions to the need for better quality, which brings the controversial topic here in our country of co-production. You mentioned co-production to filmmakers, and you open a can of worms, and yet you can't be good in everything. You know, I will have the cameras, someone else has the actors, someone else has the lights, someone else has the rig, someone else has the location. There's always someone who will do something better than you. So co-production, working together with others, the end product will be much better, much bigger than what anyone would actually think. Thank you.
All right. I see we have about 15 minutes to go. So I would like to put this question out there, and you can answer in any format. So is there money in this creative business? Is there money in filmmaking? Is there money in content creation? And if so, where is the money?
There is money for sure. There is money for sure. First of all, there is money for producing. About 4 years back, a couple of us distributors, we engaged a bank and we gave them a model, a business case for them to look at. And just to try it out, they were willing to put down 20 million. Unfortunately, that's a story for a movie itself. The bank went down. But they were willing, meaning that if one bank was willing, other one would be willing. Yeah. So there's money for production. From private sector, there's money in advertising. It's just that it is a process. So if you have the tenacity and you have the staying power, you can access that money. There is money in advertising. Final product, there is money if the process has been done as we have spoken here. You will make money. You know, I'm looking forward to the day the big movies in Kenya can access the South African cinema circuit. You know, people need to, people just Google the South African cinema circuit. How many cinemas are in Cape Town? How many cinemas are in Durban? You will go mad. We are talking in their hundreds. So if you do well here, then seek to go outside there. Don't be happy that you made your 3 million in Kenya. In Africa, there's still a lot more money to be made. For my Nigerian brothers and sisters, I've done business. I've learned a lot from that industry. I've learned a lot from the distributors there. They'll push you until you buy. You know, I've learned a lot from them. I would love to see Kenyan films in Nigeria. It is a wonderful market. They will enjoy our content the same way we enjoy our content. So to answer your question, Lucy, there is money, but it's not easy money. It is not easy money, but there is money.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to echo what George says. I also think there's money, but I don't think it's definitely not easy money. Financing a film is not easy. Banks don't understand generally how to finance films. I mean, I'm working on a project now, the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, which will be taking place in Kigali next year, and Afro-Exim banks involved, and African Development Bank and AU, and all these massive organizations have earmarked the creative industries as a massive economic growth driver for the continent, and film is one of their priorities. They would not do this if it was not viable. They're all putting money into there are credit facilities available, there are finance facilities available, but if you don't do your homework and understand what you're getting into, you will come short. And it is not easy and it is not quick money. I think that's the thing. I think one day, I think we will, it will get there, but it's about many things in the ecosystem happening for that. The reason, a lot of films make so much money overseas is not in itself. It's the merchandising that goes with it. It's the sponsorship. It's all those other things, the product placement. So there are many things that need to work in parallel to get African film industries to a point where the money's easier. But I do think there is money. I think banks are starting to wake up to film financing, development organizations, commercial and development banks. And so I think, yes, I think there is money, but I think only for the brave and only for the serious. I think if you're in this to try and turn around a quick buck, you're in the wrong business. You've got to have the long game in sight. But yes, there is money.
Serge?
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I was going to say there is money, but don't get it wrong. Like if that's your motivation, if that's your number one motivation, then I feel sorry for you because you're not going to get that money like that. It's a process, and also there is money, yes, but there is more money to be made, obviously, and it's a journey. The way to financial viability is still very, very far away. But there's reason to be optimistic because when you look at the numbers, and we've been talking about Nigeria, if you look at the number of the Nigerian box office today, and if you compare them to what they were 10 years ago, you will see a huge difference. You will see that the success of Nollywood is really something that started 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it keeps growing. Only COVID this year was there to kind of humble everybody, but other than that, there is a steady growth that has happened, but you can see how long of a journey it's taking, and at the same time, it's even in Nigeria, they're still not there. There's still a long way to go to really get to a point where the whole industry benefits from the interest that Nollywood generates. So that's going to happen in Kenya, it's going to happen in most of the big markets of the continent, but it just take time, and there is a path to cross, and it depends on the strategies that are at play on the institutional level as well as on the individual level. And if the right decisions are made, then we're going to get a sustainable, viable industry in Africa at large.
Trushna?
To add to that, I agree. If you look at the Nigerian market, it's blossomed over the last 5 years. The growth has been tremendous. But to prove that, it's data that we're all referring to. We need that data in order to be able to show what the growth has been. Unfortunately, that has also not been very forthcoming in our market. And I think that's where collectively working together in different platforms or formats, we need to share that data with each other and also be able to then publish it outward, because I think the whole success of Nigeria is being looked at by those numbers that are very well presented and are out there. So the world looks at Nigeria in a different eye because of their growth. And I do believe, yes, there is money. Some have got the formula right and are making the money. and some are still on stumbling blocks and are trying to learn the trade, and so it's a rocky road for them. uh, but I think there is hope, and we're in that direction by working on festivals, working on the different platforms of run. I mean, let's put it this way: if Netflix is very keen on Africa content, there is obviously interest. So I think there is potential, and it just needs to be worked on more, and we can get there. I believe there is enough good storytelling that is in our homegrown environment, and it's worth that can go into international, international festivals and even win accolades. It's really good content.
Oh, awesome. I see we have 5 minutes to go to our to end our session. So I would ask all of you to give your parting shots, especially in terms of the opportunities that you see, and some of the tips you would share for filmmakers to go out there and make the money. George, you can start.
I think the first thing I would say is that this is a powerful panel. I've been on different panels, and this is a powerful one. And this conversation should continue, because this masterclass has only touched very lightly. We haven't really gotten to the meat of it. It's very light. So that would be my number one. For filmmakers, for the producers, there's opportunity. There's still opportunity to make money. The ones who are in production now, the ones who have already produced, it's just getting to understand where you are working, the environment that you're working in, get to understand it much better. The information is there. If you seek it, you will find it, but the money is there. Just to answer a question from someone called Emisa, where did you go to film school? I went to Kenya Institute of Mass Communication Film School. This was way back in the 90s. Thank you.
Trushna?
Well, I'd like to say, keep talking to us. We need to keep engaging in such panels, in such discussions, because we are learning a lot. We are also building a lot of contacts. We are all getting together to solve the time immemorial problem and challenge that filmmakers are facing. I think it's also perhaps important that as key industry players, we work closely together and see how that these different windows um, and platforms we can try and streamline in terms of rights for the filmmakers, so it might become easier for them to be able to approach any one of us, and we may be able to come up with a better solution for them by putting in contact with the other players and making sure that the ecosystem is actually exploited as we talk about in theory, and actually making it practical. So keep the conversations going, and I think we will get there.
Serge?
Okay, the time is really about to come to an end. I just want to say that I'm available as well. Training and sharing best practices is part of my job at the French Embassy. So I'm available for all filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers in order to help and to contribute to the growth, their personal growth and the growth of the industry at large. So that's my final word.
Lara?
Yeah, I guess some of it would echo what everyone else said, which is whether it's us or other people, like ask for the right help. this can be a daunting business. And if you're serious about it and you're starting out, you may have gone to film school and you learned how to make a film, but you didn't learn about rights, and you didn't learn about the technical specs for dubbing, and you didn't learn about marketing. You're not expected to know it all. But as Georgia said, this is your business. If you're producing a film, you might not be expected to know it all, but you're going to be expected to deliver it all anyway. So I would say just ask for help, and you'd be amazed at how willing people actually are to give you that help. So yeah, that's a really important thing to keep in mind.
Wow, awesome. Probably you should also share how the audience can reach you. If it's a website that they can reach you to probably get to know more about how they can pitch their ideas, or Lara for you, if they can get some training and consultancy about marketing, and George as well, and Serge.
I would say actually go to our Ladima website, which is LADIMA, so it's ladima.africa. That is the nonprofit side of things. But yeah, I can be reached. My email's there. It's lara@ladima.africa, and happy for anyone to reach me.
I'm always available. I've done it over the years, speaking at schools, at universities, wherever I'm invited. I've given advice, I've been called, and you can reach me. Email is very simple, just george.kimani@gmail.com. That one straight to my phone. It's the most open one, and always willing to talk and to share the little that I know.
Trushna?
Hi. For the Kenyans, I guess they have our access. I have on the private chat shared a little bit of information. But if you'd like to reach us or reach me, my email address is Trushna, that's TRUSHNA at crimsonmultimedia.com. Do write to me and share your contacts, and would be happy to engage and see how we can help.
Serge?
Okay, I have a very long email address, so I don't think it will be helpful here. But there's a website that is easier. It's friendsinkenya.com, I think. Friendsinkenya.com, so you can just get onto that, and then you will see the section about film and media, and then that would be the easiest way to reach out. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Trushna, George, Serge, and Lara, for your time and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. I think we should do more of these sessions. Just as George said, we just touched a little bit of it, but it's good that it sparked a conversation online, and also you've left us with a lot to go ponder and work on as creatives. And I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you sharing your knowledge. And thank you so much. I'll hand it over back to Dr. Zippy, who's the festival director of LIPFF. Zippy, to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for accepting to be part of LIPFF. I hope I can be heard, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much to be part of LIPFF. And George Kimani, you said you were at KIMC when KIMC was KIMC.
Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
Back in the day.
Thank you so much for that. I believe a lot of these young people will really reach out to you. And even me, I don't know, I'm in between. I'm in the midlife. We will reach out. I think you've talked about advertising. I need you to get me to those advertisers so that we see how their products can get into my movies and my friends' movies. Trushna, we have to get things on my movies network. I mean, my movies Africa. And Lara, you have to really help us get these funds. Especially for us women, we are going to be knocking at your door. And Serge, all the links that you have had before, trust me, I think you're the right person on that seat right now at the French Embassy, because you are more than the French embassy. Now you're coming in as a distributor, a festival organizer, and also an audiovisual attaché. I think that's a great wealth of information, and we just want to appreciate you all. And Lucy, I lack words to tell you what you've been to us during this festival. I think you're the star of the festival this year. We just want to say thank you so much, and to our listeners, thank you so much for making the 5th edition of the LIPFF Festival come alive. To all our audience, we just want to say we just have one more panel tomorrow, and tomorrow it's not in the evening. Tomorrow it's in the morning hours, 11 to 1 p.m. The new era of filmmakers. I think that's a panel that it feels like it's a continuation of this talk that was here today. Yeah, when I listen to all of you talking about the new cinema, Trushna telling us the cinemas are trying to restructure how to have our content. Then the new era of filmmakers, I think they'll have to come and tell us if they truly need that space. And so let's keep it here. And of course, tomorrow, keep it on YouTube, keep it on Facebook for the panel discussion and also for the live gala awards that will be happening at the on Facebook and on YouTube. So thank you so much, and we appreciate you. Bye bye.